Well, hello. I think this is part 6 of the Jeffrey Lee Wells personal history segments that I've been doing. Kind of a lazy way to do my personal history. A lot of people just write it. I thought I'd record it, and if it was possible, maybe transcribe it. I don't know. But my last segment, I talked a little bit about the jobs that I had, and I kind of ran through those chronologically. But I didn't have the opportunity to talk about the experiences that I think that I had in each of those and what they meant to me. I think that would be kind of fun to know if I were looking back at my grandparents or great-grandparents, or even much further, to understand the work that they did and what was good and or bad about it, I guess. So I thought I would do that. I do know that my first jobs, when I was mowing lawns kind of out on my own. I was pretty young, didn't have a lot of direction other than told that I should earn some money, and it was kind of fun to be able to do that. I remember when I was cutting lawns, there was one time where I ran out of gas, and I only had a little teeny strip about maybe 50 feet long and about 6 inches wide that I couldn't cut because my lawnmower had run out of gas, but I had a pair of grass clippers, so I had to get on my knees and clip about 40, 50 feet of grass with my hands. I remember my hand was so sore when I was done with that. And another job I had was painting the front of a car sales lot, the big display sign that they had out front. I had to paint it white so they could letter it. And I remember it was interesting job for me because it was a friend of my dad's, and I didn't want to make a mistake, and I never painted before, and it was on a highway, so everybody's going to be watching me, and I think I was probably 13, 14 years old or something when I picked up on that job. An earlier job I had, I was probably 10, was my Uncle Rumsey asked me to wash his car, and he said, if you're going to do it, you better do it right. And I've never forgotten that phrase. If you're going to do something, do it right. And I remember I didn't want to disappoint good old Uncle Rumsey, so I worked pretty hard on his card. Went off to Fort Knox, and I had a job there. I was delivering hot dogs to different pools they had on the Fort Knox complex, and that was fun because I was driving, I was delivering goods. I'd show up and I'd stack the potato chips and deliver the hot dogs and kind of take an accounting and collect the monies that they had. Then I'd run to the next one and do that. So that was kind of cool. I was just turned, I was 15 and a half, and I could drive then. So that was a fun job for me. Went out to California after that, and I remember I worked at a golf course shagging golf balls. It gave me an opportunity to play some golf, but while I was shagging golf balls, people would be hitting golf balls out into the golf range, and these balls would be zooming by me, and I think people even tried to aim for you. We didn't have helmets, and I think about that. I thought, my gosh, if something had happened to me or anybody else, it would be grounds for a big lawsuit. So, but when I got into between my junior and senior year, I took a job at Sambo's. I started out as a busboy picking up dishes and stuff like that and putting them through a dishwashing machine. So I worked shifts. I was on a payroll. I remember my hourly salary was $1.45 an hour, and it was kind of disconcerting because the waitresses got tips and the cooks got tips, but we didn't. But I hung around there, cooked enough that, hung around there enough that I kind of learned how the cooks cooked. And when they wanted like a smoke break or to take lunch or something, they taught me enough that I could flip eggs or make pancakes for the orders. So after a while, I began to take longer and longer shifts, and finally, when they were short on people, they hired me to cook when somebody didn't show up, or the night shift. I could go in and cook. And I remember, I think my pay jumped to like $1.80 or something. But that was cool. I was making big bucks, I thought. I was able to buy my first car, a 1951 Oldsmobile. Paid $100 for it. I had to rip out the carpeting and the hood liner and put in, I used a Snoopy sheet for my hood liner in the car, and I got carpet scraps and glued them to the base of the car floorboard, so that I had kind of a place to put my feet and stuff like that. That was fun actually. So I worked at Sambo's and kind of worked my way up as a cook, and made about another $1 an hour after a while. And you know, back then, $2.50, $3 an hour was pretty good pay. So and then towards the end of my senior year, I began to work at a place called Doss Interiors, and introduced me to just business generally. But we delivered furniture to people that came into the store, and I rearranged furniture on the showroom floor, and when little things needed to be built, I had to do that. I remember I helped somebody make some lambrequins for some drapes, and basically did deliveries and just kind of odd jobs. But one situation I had there, I was asked to scrape off the old paint around the old house so that it could be primed and painted. So I had this blowtorch, and I was heating up the paint and scraping. But this was an old house. It was maybe 80, 90 years old, and I didn't realize it. Nobody else did then. But when I was using that blowtorch, I was pushing flame and embers into the wooden gutter area there. And one night after I'd gone home, got a call that the house was on fire, and went back, and the fire department was there, and basically one of those embers had kind of kicked up and caught the pine needles that were in the gutter on fire, and somebody fortunately caught it, but that could have been a disaster. Big lesson with that. But I really enjoyed that job. I worked with people, worked with the public, was involved in sales, kind of got my mind thinking more about that. And then I went off to BYU, and really didn't have a job my first semester. My parents paid for my tuition my first semester in college. I remember they paid tuition and my lodging. And I didn't really have a job most of the first semester, but the second semester I had to work, and I'd gotten a little teeny scholarship of about $200. And I remember I got a job working in the MARD building, cleaning test tubes and petri dishes in the botany and science department. I thought that was fun because I had an interest in botany at the time, and allowed me to go into the different professors' offices and things like that, and kind of see their notes for their classes and what they had on the board and the different experiments they had going on, and that was a lot of fun for me actually. So but that's what I did until I went home after my freshman year, and then I got a job again back at Doss Interiors. They hired me, but I needed another job, so I worked two jobs. I was a security guard for Security Eye Patrol. They drove little orange cars and gave us a uniform with a little badge, and for some unknown reason they gave me a gun. Never showed me how to use it, just said here, and I strapped it on, and was scared to take it out of the holster. I don't know if I would have ever known how to have used that not silly gun, but dangerous gun, and under what conditions. I had no training whatsoever. It was the craziest thing. And I was asked to go walk around industrial plants, and then sometimes I was assigned to a movie theater, drive-in movie theater, to make sure people weren't sneaking in. And I worked at a fairgrounds, making rounds, going from spot to spot, and that actually created a good opportunity. I was preparing to go off on my mission, and was trying to memorize the discussions that we had at the time. And I had the discussions on a little 3x5 card, and I was walking around, and between spots they would have street lights, so I'd stop and memorize something and then walk and recite it until the next street light, and then I would say it back to myself again, and did that. And they had another security guard that was plain clothes. I was in a uniform, and he was walking the opposite direction, and he kept seeing what I was doing. And one night he asked what I was doing. I told him. He says, well, let me walk along with you, and I will listen to what you're saying and tell you if you've memorized it correctly. So we did that. His name is Tom Ingham, and he was touched and moved by the lessons that he was helping me memorize. And I ended up teaching him and his family before I went on my mission. In fact, baptized him in the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints the day I left on my mission. And they helped support me during my mission, so that was an incredible experience. My mission was a wonderful experience, and I'll have a different or another segment on that. It actually laid the groundwork for a lot of wonderful opportunities, including this one here, where I'm in Patagonia, Chile at Raul Marine Balmaceda on a place called Fundo Los Leones, which was one of the investments that I made during my tenure of enjoying Patagonia in South America, in Argentina and Chile. But I, when I got off my mission, I went back to BYU, and I immediately took a job. Well, right when I got off my mission, I was home for about 3 or 4 weeks. So I went and painted houses, the trim of houses, and then made enough that I could kind of get started in school, and drove back to BYU and started there. And I took 2 jobs, actually. I immediately took a job working at the BYU library. They put me up in the ancient manuscript department. I knew enough Spanish, and for some reason I had a knack at reading Latin. I could understand the S's and the F's and all the weird way that they would write the letters, but I could kind of look at Latin, and I could translate it enough that they let me categorize books and transcripts and things like that that were donated to the BYU library. And that was fun. You had everything from journals, but you had ancient manuscripts and books in Latin, and books written by priests and things like that. It was really, really an interesting job, but I only did that for a semester because I came back and started selling Bosch bread makers. And that was a lot of fun. That's what kind of got me into sales in a direct way. And I learned how to make whole wheat bread and things using a bread maker. And it was fun because most of my clients were college girls. So I might go and set up appointments to make bread with 4 or 5 girls sitting around a table, and it gave me a chance to socialize, meet some fun girls, and to sell these bread makers. I remember I made $39 or $49 for every bread maker I sold. And my goal was to sell 1 or 2 a week, and that would give me enough to live off of. So I did that, but when I was doing that, I met a guy. I don't know how I met him. I have no idea how I met this guy, Harry Ogden, incredible man. We had sat down and had a conversation, and he was a diamond broker, and he supplied the local diamond stores with diamonds that he bought out of Africa. And I had this conversation with him, and again, I don't know what precipitated that conversation really, but I saw him that one evening, and I walked out that night. He had given me a bag full of diamonds wrapped up in these little blue pieces of paper and a little box with ring sets, and said, if you can go sell those directly, go ahead. So I was in business. I had put no money into it. I probably walked out of there meeting this guy for the first time that night with maybe $20,000-$25,000 worth of diamonds. 1 carat diamonds, half carat diamonds. And so I went to stores, figured out what they were selling them for, and I tried to sell them for about half. And I had some luck with that. So I started a little operation called Lee's Diamonds, which was me in my dorm room. I got an answering machine, and I put an ad in the Daily Universe, the BYU paper, and it had a little monogram I designed called Lee's Diamonds. Lee's my middle name. And I had the phone number 385, I think it was 384-5333, which is Jeff, Jeff. and people would call. I was never there, but I said, Lee's Diamonds, etc., and they would leave a message, and I'd call them back to set up a in-home appointment. So I'd go visit them. I didn't have a storefront. And BYU, the engagement capital of the world, that was so fun. I was meeting all these couples and talking to them about diamonds. I became kind of a gemologist in my own right, and explaining to people about diamonds and cuts, and carats and clarity, and so on and so forth. And it was a blast, really. And I did really well. I wanted to make $100 a diamond. So if I sold a $2,000 diamond, I'd sell it for $2,100. If I sold a $300 diamond, I'd sell it for $400. And that was really well below the retail costs of things then. And every ring set was $100. And Harry would set it for me for $30. And that would save these students a ton of money. A ton of money, because my diamonds had the GIA certification that everybody else had. So, you know, unless I was switching out diamonds or something, people were getting a great deal. But because I wasn't a store, I had a lot of doubting Thomases, etc. And after a while, the city, after seeing my ads, felt that I should be a retail establishment, and suggested to me in a letter that I needed to get a business license and open up a retail center. So I did that for about 2.5 semesters and was really killing it. And but then something else happened. I had a class at BYU, real estate appraisal, and we were asked in one of our assignments to appraise any kind of real estate project that we wanted to. So I decided to appraise the Elms apartment complex where I was living at the time, which at this time is right across from the Brick Oven, or what was called Heaps Pizza at the time. And I wrote it up, came up with my valuation. I was downstairs in the laundry room, and the owner, Brother Larson, he owned a bunch of apple and orchards and cherry orchards and whatnot, was down there, and he asked me what I was doing. I told him. He says, well, what value did you come up with? And I said, well, I came up with, I think I remember the value was 3.4 million or something. He looked at me and he said, son, if you can find somebody that's willing to pay that, I'll sell. And I kind of chuckled and disappeared, went to class a few days later, and turned in the appraisal, told DeLoss Ellsworth, who was my professor, that that's what he said. And he said, really? I said, yeah. And he looked at my appraisal, and he came back about a week later and said, what's Brother Larson's phone number? I said, oh, here it is. I had it because everybody had it then at that time. And next thing I know, Brother Ellsworth gives me a $20,000 check as a finder's fee for helping he and his partners buy the Elms apartment complex. And man, I was in business, and $20,000. My starting salary out of college was $19,500 a year. So that was big bucks for a college student. And I thought, man, real estate is the way to go. And so I stopped selling diamonds and moved forward with real estate. Got my degree in economics, but my emphasis was in real estate. And started out working in the timeshare industry, which is kind of a new industry at the time. There was a company out of Denver that was selling timeshares in Mexico and in Hawaii and in Colorado. And I was only going out to Denver temporarily. I was expecting to go back to school because the economics department had put together a special Masters of Science, an MS program exclusively for me to study third world economics. I still regret having not done that, because when I went to BYU, I met Holly and married her, and we started having a family, and my interests and obligations changed. I didn't go back. But while I was in Denver, when I was working with gosh, I can't remember the name of the company now. Anyway, it was fun because I was traveling back and forth and taking groups of people down to buy timeshare interests in Manzanillo, Mexico. and that was cool. Groups of people, and they had good success selling timeshare weeks to different people, and they got involved with Interval International and Resort Condominiums International, two trading companies that I think are still in business right now. But and that actually led to my interest in buying timeshare weeks for my family at Disney World, which is one of the, or is the best trading weeks that there are. But so anyway, I did that, and but when I got married, I needed a better job where I wasn't going to be traveling and stuff, and I signed up with a company called Kensington Investments that was doing real estate investments and building commercial office buildings. I thought that was cool, and they were interested in building some timeshare projects up in Winter Park, Colorado. So I thought that was great. It sounded like more of a professional job, and I started doing that, and did that for about 1.5 years. That was my starting job, and that's the job that I had when I was married. And but the market was so bad then. Interest rates were approaching 12, 13, 14% for residential mortgages, and then project shut down. It was an interesting time. This would have been 1980 that happened. Just starting to rain here now. Isn't this pretty? Pretty place here. Anyway, started doing that with Scott Robertson, and did that for about 1.5 years. But then he ran out of money because of that project and had to let me go. He didn't fire me; he had to let me go. And I remember when he did that, we sat down and I started to cry. I don't know why I cried. I think it was the pressure of knowing that I didn't have a job and what was I going to do. I didn't bawl or anything, but I know that people could tell that I was crying, and I look back at that now and I think it was an interesting reaction that I had. But I saw a book title one time that said, "The best day of your life is the day you're fired." And that actually led me into a lifetime of new careers, one kind of building on another because of that. And that is a different chapter that I'll start now. It'll be me moving into the insurance industry. So this is part 6 ending. I don't want these to be too long. And then I'll take the jobs thereafter from this point moving forward.